Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley, and I am back with another video. This is the 7th and final video I'm going to make in this series. Anything that I haven't touched up on, you should probably go and find out more about it in the DBT Labs websites. They have tons of examples and information about how you can do all kinds of things to customize your whole setup. But the whole point of this series is just to introduce you to it, so at least you have an idea what it is, and then you can go and try it out on your own and figure out as you go by visiting that website more often. So what I've done now is that I have added a production folder, so you can see it up here. I added a schema file that looks like this. And of course, all this code will be available to you, so I'm not going to cover every detail of this code. But as you can see, there is a model section, and there is the name of a new fact table I generated from the existing fact table called sales. And also, I used a dimension for the city to generate this. The whole point of this video series is just to demonstrate how you can use DBT. It's not how you create a data warehouse. So the whole flow now will be that you're going to be going from seeds folder, which is this one, that has all these different CSVs. Then we're going to run some models that's going to create the staging folder. And there is a schema on that too. And the schema is pretty straightforward. It goes through a few basic tests, as you can see, that comes with DBT. Based on this column, you're going to perform these tests. And this is the table, or in this case, the staging is views, it's not tables. And of course, the whole thing is put together in this DBT project file. And if you look, here's the models. Here is the folder. And by default, it's supposed to be a table. So here's the staging folder. And I set the node colors that I want in my graphical display for the docs here. And also, you can see here, now this one, by the way, doesn't work. So ignore this one here. There's also a production folder that the default will be a table. And the colors should be green for all the tables. Except for, I want the fact tables that I'm creating here to be of color blue, like you can see here. So all the dimension tables should be green, and then all the fact tables should be blue. So you can set up the docs the way you want them to go. And then I have the seeds setups here for the raw folder, and I want those to be silver. All right, so that's a little bit about the project setup. You have to create this production folder, or I think DBT calls it MART. It's up to you what you want to call it. I mean, everybody prefers different things. I prefer staging and production. Basically, what goes into the production should be what the users are going to be seeing. So you might want to limit how many columns you want the users to see or work with, etc. Let me just quickly lay that out for you. So I call it dim underscore for all of these tables. And it's the same model as before. And I'm going to base it on the staging city view, as you can see here. I also say I want to materialize this model as a table. Now, it might not be necessary here because I have it in the DBT project folder file, YAML file as well. So this might be not necessary, but it's there, so I don't care. And then you can have a description like this. Select everything from the staging city view, and then select whatever columns you want the users to see. So maybe you don't need some of these kind of guys, okay? Now this is basically what you're going to be using for any new data that comes in to the fact tables. This will perform the snapshot. Okay, so that's that one. And all of these are pretty much the same. There's nothing really fantastic new here. I just created these so we can finalize it into a production. And then you have a schema like this where you set up the models. I set up the fact city profit table, which is a new table I'm generating here on the fly. So that's this one. As you can see here, the column names, the description of the column names, the test I want to be doing, and the model that actually does that will be this fact city profit SQL model. So this one is not based on the seats. It's based on staging table view, I should say. So as you can see here, I'm selecting the city key and the profit from the staging sale view, I should say. And then I'm creating a second query where I select the city key and the city as a city name, and this WWI city ID, which basically gives a city in a state the same WWI city ID. So it repeats for everyone it finds. This one is unique for every row in the table. And I'm referring back to this view. And then finally then I'm aggregating here, as you can see, by using the WWI city ID, the city name, and then I do a count over how many transactions there were for that city, and then the total profit for that city, and the average profit for that city. So now this is kind of meaningless stuff. I mean, this is just used for demonstrating how you could, create your own versions or new tables, etc. And then I inner joined the city on the city key with the sales table. And then I group it by 1 and 2, which will be, I group it by these two. Okay? And then I select from the end here. So that's what that new table will look like. Okay, so once that's done and you set up this stuff and you updated your DBT project YAML file, and after you created a schema YAML file for the folder that you're interested in, like the production, I have my own schema here, and for staging, I have my own schema here. So once you have done all that, the final thing then is to kind of see if it passes all the tests, if it can build all this. So what we want to do is we want to open up the terminal. Here is the terminal window, and I'm going to run this in PowerShell because that's what my commands are set up to use. So here is the PowerShell one. So what I have to do is I have to basically navigate into the right folder, which is this one right here. Now we're in that folder. I want to make sure that I don't have a database. I want to clean everything out. So I'm going to say dbt clean. And as you can see, it removes logs and targets like this. So next thing I want to do is I want to create the database, because right now we don't have a database, as you can see here in this folder. So what I can do is I can say dbt debug like this. And now it runs through, and hopefully now it establishes a connection to this database right here that sits in this folder right here. So let's go and take a look. And sure enough, notice it's only 12 KB right now because there's nothing in it. It's just a shell right now. But it set up the database right here. So the next thing we want to do then is we want to run the dbt build so it can build the project. And basically what dbt build does is it runs the seed command. So it's going to take all the seed files, CSVs, create tables of them inside this database, and then it's going to run that, and it's going to run the snapshot, and then it's going to run all those tests you saw. So that's what the dbt build does. So let's run dbt build and see what that produces. Okay, of course I couldn't run dbt build. I'm not inside in my virtual environment. So as you can remember, if you want to be in the virtual environment, you type this venv scripts activate function. Okay, so now I should be able to run dbt build. So let's dbt build. So I'm kicking that off, and it's going to run through a bunch of stuff here, from loading the CSV files, to insert them into the duckdb, as you can see here, from the main raw schema, which we set in our YAML file. And it's going to create the staging table views. I should say staging views. And then, of course, in the finalizer, it's going to run all the tests it was set up. It's going to also run all the production table creations, as well as inserting all the records. So it's going to take a few seconds to finish this. Okay, so as you can see, it ran 7 seed files, CSV files, 1 snapshot, 8 table models, and 20 data tests. And it successfully completed, as you can see, 43 passes. All right, so that's good news. So let's minimize that. So the next thing I want to do then is I want to actually make sure I can document this. So I'm going to say dbt docs generate. And what that one does, it generates a catalog JSON file that's going to be used by this graphical tool when it creates web browser output, so you can actually view visually what it will look like. So it finished building this catalog. And next thing we want to do then is we want to run dbt docs serve. That means it's going to spin up a browser for us so we can actually look at this. So dbd docs serve, as you can see, you have models. It basically lists all your tables. As you can see, it's a table in production. If you went to staging, it should be a view. Sure enough, it's a view. There's all kinds of details here. The data test performed, what it depends on. And also, another nice thing is you can see the code that is using. So the source code will include the Jinja version of this. So as you can see, I'm referring to the CSV table that was put into duckdb, and that's called city. My finished output that goes into the target folder will not look like this. It will look like this. It translated it into the database, the actual schema it uses for this, and the name of the table. It gives you a lot of information here. And another nice thing, of course, is this lineage graph. And as you can see here, I got some filters on, and you should refer back to previous videos about how to read this stuff with the plus minus syntax that I showed you there. Right now, I got it filtered by this, and what it tells you is that all downstream objects should be shown, and all upstream should be shown. So, for example, if I remove the downstream and take this out and say update, now the first table has disappeared. And if I do this, it should come back again. And if I take this, the downstream should go away. So now only the first two are showing. So that's how you can actually filter things, and you can exclude things by doing it that way. I want to see all of them, so update, and here you can see my fact tables on blue like we suggested they should be, and notice my dimension tables are in green. It did what we set out to do for the documentation, and all the staging ones are in orange, as you can see, and when you click on them you're getting a selected color, if you will. So all this can be manipulated, and you can go wild about doing what you want to see here. And I'm just rolling my mouse wheel to zoom in and out here. You can also use tags, as you can see. For all this detail and for more information, you should refer back to the documentation, the DBT Labs documentation. It's quite extensive. Another thing I should say too is that in VS Code, we are using the DBT core and the Python duckdb library that goes with it. So it's slow when it produces this stuff. There's another version of DBT out called Fusion, which is a work in progress, but it's super fast because it's written in Rust. In VS Code, you should be able to actually look into using that one, but it takes some fixing because you can't use all the same commands. But if you look, for example, down here, I got this DBT power user. You can see that this user, don't have this activated right now because it's a conflict between core and the Python and this one. There is some YouTube videos out there that talks about using DBT Fusion, which is probably the future. So you should start looking into that as well. The final thing then is to simply look at the database and what happened there. So let's go and take a look at the duckdb database. So let's open that database. All right, so now it's open, so we can say show tables. Notice you have all the production tables here, and you also have the staging tables here, okay? I can also look at the views. I can say from duckdb views where database name is equal to WWI, like this. So when I run this, you can see here are the view. So what I can do is I can also do the mode, because it's hard, you're missing stuff here. Mode is line, for example. And then I can say the same thing again. And now you can see you're getting more information because you can actually see all the columns. So you can actually see the view name like this. Okay, so that is what's in the database. So you have every object in there. Just to make sure that we cover all points, notice you can use this show schemas command. And you can see we have 3 schemas here. We got the main snapshots, main raw, and main. The tables we just looked at and the views we just looked at is in the main schema. But all the seed tables, the CSVs, were loaded into this main raw schema. So what you can do is you can say show tables from main raw. And here is your starting tables, those CSV files that were loaded directly in here. So you got to prefix it with the right schema here whenever you query out of it. But in order to see it, you can use this technique from whatever schema you want to show the tables or describe tables, etc. So that should be enough to get you started. Check the documentation for more details and check the new dbt Fusion for future use. I hope you like my videos, and if you do, please give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. It'd be fantastic. I look forward to see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.